ORourke Being, white male doesn't put me at disadvantage. Presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke said Saturday that being a white man in a 2020 Democratic field that's so deeply diverse won't be a hindrance because his gender and race have given him inherent advantages for years. While had spoken before about his gender and race, O'Rourke had largely dodged campaign trail questions about whether his party would go for a white man in a year when a historic number of women and minorities are running to deny President Donald Trump a second term. The former Texas congressman was making a series of stops in Iowa, the state that kicks off the presidential nominating process. Also campaigning, O'Rourke called recognizing and understand that and doing. O'Rourke said he believes the Democrats seeking the White House in 2020 encompass they. He had already said had stopped making a joke had frequently repeated about how his wife, Amy, raising the couple's 3 young children sometimes. Other highlights of Saturday's campaigning. Democratic presidential candidate Amy Klobuchar criticized Trump for his response to the deadly attack in a New Zealand mosque, telling voters in Iowa Trump played down the threat posed by white nationalism on Friday after the mosque massacre that left 49 people dead. The man accused of Klobuchar spoke about the shooting during a campaign stop in Waterloo, Iowa. The Minnesota Senate, she said, that on the policy front, Klobuchar said in Dubuque that as president she would put forward a major infrastructure program that would help address flooding that is hitting parts of the Midwest. Waterloo and Dubuque. Washington government. Jay Inslee called, he said until the GOP joins the voters have exactly end. Inslee tied his climate change push to the current debate over whether to end the filibuster in the U.S. Senate. Anything. Inslee also criticized Trump for his remarks after the New Zealand shootings, saying the president uses Kirsten Gillibrand Sr. Kirsten Gillibrand, the Democratic presidential hopeful, said public service changes. That's the New York senator held a civic service roundtable in Manchester as she finishes a 2-day swing through the first in the nation primary state. The New Jersey senator criticized Trump's bigoted Booker said if elected president, he would instruct the Justice Department to investigate hate groups and unequivocally. A fluent Spanish speaker from El Paso, across the Rio Grande from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, O'Rourke noted that he's the only 2020 candidate from the border theirs. O'Rourke plans to campaign in the battleground state of Wisconsin on Sunday, then head to Michigan. His campaign Joe Biden was the scheduled headliner at a Democratic Party dinner in Delaware, his home state, as the former vice president considers whether to make a third White House run. Biden, 76, who served as President Barack Obama's closest advisor, is the only major contender still on the sidelines and has suggested he could remain there for several more weeks. About 200 people streamed into a sunny park in a suburb of Las Vegas to hear Sr. Bernie Sanders as a group of about a dozen protesters carrying signs supportive of Trump or decrying Sanders as a socialist lined the road to greet supporters of the Vermont senator. The self-described Democratic Socialists rally in Henderson followed an announcement Friday that his presidential campaign staffers became the first in history to unionize. That was expected, Woodall reported from Exeter, New Hampshire. Associated Press.
Raindrop, truck top, smoking, no cooking, the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.